Wait.
Okay, I see we're streaming, so I'll call this regular council meeting in the Village of Grand Manan to order at 7:40 p.m. Our apologies for being a couple minutes late getting started, but we're just trying to get things up and running. For prayer tonight, Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity tonight to gather together and discuss the items that we have on the agenda, and we pray for wisdom as we go through these items. And we just pray over this island, Lord God, with the things that are happening, with the situations we find ourselves in. We just pray your blessing upon this island, your guidance here tonight. Thank you and praise you in Jesus' name.
Thank you. Well, we've had quite a month since the last time we had a meeting. And not to belabor what's happened, but 2 days after our last meeting, we had the announcement of the Scotiabank closure. There's been a COVID outbreak at the nursing home and things have happened. So we've got a lot of stuff on the agenda. We're going to cover particularly the bank closure tonight. But I do think it is worth giving another shout out to the staff up at the nursing home for looking after everybody under some very difficult situations. And we're very thankful that it turned out as well as it did up there. So with that, we're going to move right along to disclosure of conflict of interest. Councillor Russell.
Yes, I have a conflict with Article 9.1.
Anyone else? Okay. Item number 6, additions to the agenda. I have one that I'd like to add under, I think, old business. It would be 9.4, and that would be the establishment of the MOU committee with the Boys and Girls Club. It's a follow-up to the meeting we had back in December. Would anybody like to make that a motion, please? I see Councillor Russell. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. I don't think we have the RCMP here tonight.
What about adopting the minutes, Madam Mayor?
I'm skipping right along, Councillor Green. Sorry about that. Okay, let's back up. Adoption of the minutes. Regular council meeting, January 10th. Is Chris, you have your hand up? Is that what you were going to remind me of?
No, Councillor Layton had something I thought he was going to bring up.
I just wanted to remove 11.2 off the agenda. There's been a miscommunication and we don't have the information to move forward.
I'm going to suggest when we get there, if you want to make a motion to table it till a future meeting, and then we can just move it ahead till when they are ready to come, if that works for you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, backtracking now to item number 5, adoption of the minutes of the January 10th meeting.
I'll make the motion that we adopt those minutes.
Heard the motion by Councillor Greenlaw. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by
Second that.
Councillor Toole. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so now we're up to number 7, which is the RCMP, and we don't have an RCMP report today. Is that correct?
Corporal Stewart's in the waiting room. We're just going to put him in.
Good evening, Corporal Stewart. How are you? Can you hear me now? I think you've got audio now, Corporal Stewart.
I think so. Sorry about that.
If that's the worst technical issue we have tonight, it will be a much better meeting than last time. So the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, the rest of the councilors as well. Just looking at our file counts for this past month, since the last meeting, we had 56 files that we investigated here on Grand Manan. And the same time period last year, we had 44, so a slight increase in things going on for us this month. I just broke down quickly what we were looking at this month. We had 8 persons offenses, investigations, including an assault with a weapon and 2 sexual assault investigations that are ongoing right now. We also had 12 property-related offenses, 4 traffic collisions, 3 off-road vehicle files, which included one a side-by-side being seized for the time being, and 11 other traffic-related files. One thing that I did want to bring up tonight is something new that the New Brunswick RCMP is doing. Some other provinces have been doing this over the last year, and New Brunswick just came with their own online crime reporting system. This can be done for some of the following things: mischief or damage to property under $5,000, any theft under $5,000, and lost property files. It's not to be used when there are witnesses or video evidence or a suspect, something like that. It's still not to say that these reports won't be investigated or anything like that. They're just going to be triaged as they're less serious offenses and tend not to require like an immediate police attendance. These reports will still be reviewed by the RCMP and entered into our system and assigned to an investigator when required. This can be useful, especially if you're just reporting it for insurance purposes. You had some kind of damage to your vehicle or a minor theft from your property, and your insurance company requires a police report to be filed. You can do it that way for that. In order to do that, you can access it just by going to a website. It's rcmp-grc.gc.ca/NB. So again, that's rcmp-grc.gc.ca/NB. So that's something new that we just started up here in New Brunswick, and be interesting to see how much that's going to be used and what comes of that. That's all that I really had for the council tonight. If anybody has any questions they have for me.
Thank you. Any questions? Well, they're not very top. Oh, CAO Rayner has his hand up.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Corporal Stewart, if you don't mind, maybe just go over what you and I talked about the other day with regards to the bank closure and some concern with businesses having an abundance of cash on hand and some options coming as we get closer to that date.
That's right. Thank you, Chris. We just talked quickly about the bank closure coming up this summer. and looking at if any businesses on the island that would have any substantial cash being held on hand for longer periods of time because they don't have a local bank here to make deposits at, and they might need to look at other ways of getting that to the mainland for deposits or something like that. So just something to look at maybe going forward as COVID restrictions allow. Maybe we can have either on a council meeting night, a little presentation for some of the businesses, or even just have a special presentation, a different evening or something like that, where we can just go through some different ideas for ways of protecting cash that you have on hand, and if there's anything that could be done to some safe practices put in place for bringing that money over to a bank on the mainland.
I think that sounds like a good idea, particularly as we get closer to August. Anyone else? I do have to say the online reporting, I think that that's really interesting. I know from my day job, a lot of times we'll have like a rash of thefts at the wharf where people are stealing gas cans or something like that, just minor thefts, which I'm thinking this is going to be a lot easier type of reporting than making the calls and all of that. So I hope it gets some use, and maybe we can share the link on our Facebook page just for people who are looking for it.
That's right. Yeah, the information that was sent out to us said it would take about 15 minutes to complete your report, as opposed to however long you might spend on hold waiting for dispatchers and things like that when you call in the regular complaint line. So yeah, it's definitely might be a more accessible option for some of those types of things.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Corporal Stewart. You get off easy tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
All right, number 8 is business arising from the minutes. We have nothing under that. I think most of it's being covered elsewhere. So item 9.1, which is a PAC letter of recommendation. Councillor
Question.
Russell has declared conflict, and I think we can send him to a breakout room. And you have a question?
What I'm going to do, I'm going to physically leave this room and shut the door, just like if I was in council chambers. Chris will call me when I can return.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm gone.
All right, and I see we've lost Councillor Turner, but she was having battery issues, so she said she was going to rejoin shortly. So I think we're okay to continue. Maybe. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So at last month's meeting, we had the letter of recommendation from PAC with regards to the rezoning request from Dutchman Construction. I guess what it boils down to is the property is currently zoned rural, and under the zone, a quarry can't exceed 0.8 hectares. So they're looking to expand their quarry. So they have made a request for the village to rezone that from rural to industrial. And last month in the package, there was the letter from PAC giving their recommendation to start that process. I think there was some questions after the last meeting about the procedure. There was talk of a fee to be paid for the rezoning application. After I had a chance to talk to our development officer, he was told under our former CAO to not bother with the fee until until council has accepted the request. So for tonight, what we're looking for is just the approval from council to accept this request. And at that point, the development officer will retain the fee from Dutchman, as well as start the process And he explained to me what the process was. And under the Community Planning Act, Section 5, from sections 108 to 119 explains very thoroughly what's to take place next with advertising in 2 different papers, the duration, the community meetings that they're supposed to have, or a chance to our landowners, a rewriting of the bylaw. In this case, there's no words to change in the bylaw. It's just the color of the map, which shows the usage of the property. So that's my update.
Thanks. Councillor Green, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess I would like to talk to the development officer. I thought that we were supposed to do section of the rural plan, section 2.31, A, B, and C prior to even considering any discussion on it. But that would have been my interpretation of how that reads.
My conversation with the development officer was that at this point, if council accepts the request for the rezoning, he will then follow the procedure in the Community Planning Act in section 5, starting with section 109.
I think Councillor Turner's in the waiting room. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, got it.
So I guess the question on the floor is, do we want to accept the letter of recommendation from the PAC and proceed with this? Or not accept it, or where are we right now? Thoughts, comments?
So just to be clear, this is just to accept the request. So at this point, then the development officer will start the official process, which the official process can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to complete, giving everyone the opportunity to voice their concerns. Also gives us a chance to follow up with legal on the zoning, collect the fee, do the rewriting of the bylaw, change the map, reach out to adjacent property owners, etc. So this isn't committing to rezone. This is just accepting the request.
Councillor Green, your hand is still up. Were you done with your question? Okay. Councillor Layton, I'm going to move on to you.
Yes, we should make a motion to proceed with the application.
You heard the motion from Councillor Layton. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Toll. Question. Hearing none, and my computer's glitching, so I'm going to assume we're okay. Councillor Boyd, your hand's up. Or not?
Yep, no, it is. Sorry. Still getting used to the Apple Pencil here. I thought it would speed things up, but it's slowing things down. So if we accept this letter, this is by no means approving the rezoning at this point in time. Is that my understanding?
That is correct. You're just you're just accepting the request at this point. Now there's a 4 to 6 month process to do the actual rezoning. At that time, then you'll get the chance to vote to approve the actual rezoning.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, So we're going to get Councillor Russell back. And while he's working his way in, I will very slowly move on to item 9.2. So Councillor Boyd will be ready for the logo design when Councillor Russell comes back in.
Hi, I'm there. So we'll just wait for Greg and we'll continue on. Looks like Chris has made first contact. There he is. All right, he's back. Okay, so yeah, logo design update quotes. After last meeting with our technical difficulties, I sent everybody home with some homework, and I think we've narrowed it down to 2 of the 3 quotes. And after chatting with everybody, I didn't get a chance to talk to everybody individually, but I've got an idea of where we're going to go. So I am going to make a motion that the Village of Grand Manan contract services of branch design in Moncton for the creation of our new village logo.
You heard the motion from Councillor Boyd. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question. All those in favor?
I,
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Oh, Councillor Russell, you unmuted?
Yes, I voted against the motion.
So that was 1 nay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, motion carried. So then we're moving on to 9.3, which is insurance, the 2022 update. Councillor Russell.
Just wait. What's that? Am I live? Am I live or am I muted?
Oh, you're good, Greg.
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have a new policy. Chris and I went over it the other day, and when there's some free services, they're called best and value added services. I'd like to pass this over to Chris, and he can update council on some of the services that are available to us as a council. And I'll just leave it to Chris for now.
Thanks, Councillor Russell. After Councillor Russell and I reviewed the policy the other day, there were some questions that had arisen from that. I wish I had those to share with you, but the CAO computer crashed, and our tech guy is on it. He was able to recover some files, but not so much the email. But what Greg's referring to is what's included in our policy is education and seminars. Intact will actually either come to the island or via Zoom train staff, any volunteers, counselors on various sessions. I'm still waiting to get a list of those from our local provider on just what they are, but let's say, for example, the recreation department, they would come down and do a seminar on risk assessment for, playground safety, and would take staff around and show them exactly, maybe not so much on a daily, but on a weekly or bi-weekly basis on just exactly what to look for to keep playgrounds safe. It's seminars like that. But one of the ones that come up today, for example, is they will provide the service of contract reviews. So, for example, maybe our snow removal tender. Part of that process is we are required for the applicants to show liability insurance. So in this case, we could take that, send that off to Intact to have them review it to make sure that we were fully covered in any type of an accident. And I think it come up in discussion about the airport. I mean, obviously the airport's a big one. Some discussion around whether or not we've got enough coverage there with snow removal in case of an accident. So they would take that and review those contracts. But not only that, but they have also some policy and procedure reviews. So they have a lot of free services there that's available to the municipality that's already included in our premium. I think down the road, we need to take more advantage of, for sure. Councillor Russell?
Yes, with our insurance policy, under our policy right today, the CAO and the library board members, of which there are 9, are covered under the accidental death and dismemberment clause in the insurance policy. And after in-depth review, I think it's time that we remove the library board and the CAO. The CAO also has coverage under the Assumption Life Benefits Program. So I make a motion that the CAO contact our insurance company and remove the Grand Manan Library Board and CAO from the accidental death and dismemberment clause in the policy.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item 9.4 is the MOU with the Boys and Girls Club. Back in, I think it was December, we had a sit-down meeting with the board of the Boys and Girls Club and their staff, and it was really, I think we had a really good, open, honest discussion talking about moving forward and ways that we can work together. And one of the takeaways from that is that our MOU for the complex, the community center, it needs to be updated because it still indicates that there is a separate board for the arena, and it really just needs to be brought up so it's in line with how we're actually operating today. So we were to form a committee to meet with representatives of the club to sort of hammer that out. So I'm looking for us to form that committee if we have some volunteers, suggestions, or recommendations. Questions or comments? Well, I see everybody's jumping up to volunteer to be on this committee. Without having, Councillor Toll?
I just wanted to get maybe some direction on what exactly would be involved in that, like how much, how many times you would meet, like what days, like just some information on what you're specifically looking for. Or what, like how many times a month, how many times a week, how many?
I expect there would be, I mean, it's hard to tell, like you'd have to sit down, look at the MOU. I'm guessing half a dozen to a dozen meetings maybe, and then bring it back for approval. And that's a sheer guess off the top of my head. I hope it wouldn't be a long-term thing. And then at that point, once it's finalized, then it could come back to the committee for a review every year, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Layton, were you trying to speak there, I think, at one point?
Well, I just think I'll step away from that and
Okay.
all conflict of interest. I'd love to, but
Well, hearing no volunteers, I'm going to be brave and suggest this might fall into the property committee's purview. I think Greg is frozen on my screen.
I'm smiling.
So unless somebody wants to volunteer, that might be an option for a motion if somebody wanted to do something like that, for example. Yes, Chris.
I certainly will work with if the Finance and Property Committee takes that on. This was brought up a while back and some discussions were had, and I've got a couple of names of some decent people I think that would fit well on that board. people that's not tied with the club or the village, that would be a good independent party to help make up that contract. So, and I also think that we should have a representative from the club as well as the village. So collaboratively, I think we can come up with that document.
Councillor Boyd?
Yeah, what are you looking for numbers? Because as you know, the more you get, the longer it takes to get to your answer. So just after hearing what CEO Rayner had to say, I would suggest maybe at most one person from council, and potentially if Chris is willing to be on the committee as well, and then maybe one perhaps executive director from the Boys and Girls Club, as well as maybe one of their board members, and then perhaps one or two of these people from the community like Chris had spoken of. And I think that would be more than enough. That's just my suggestion.
I think a 6-person committee sounds very reasonable. Councillor Russell?
Yes, I support Chris and Dan with the, I call it an independent thought, or a couple of people not directly involved either with council, or I think I was thinking of the mediator role, but I think that's a very good idea.
Okay, but we still need someone to sit with the CAO on that committee. Councillor Brown, are you volunteering, or are you volunteering someone? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'll volunteer to do it.
Perfect. Do we need a motion for that? Maybe? Probably should. Somebody quick before she changes her mind.
I move that we appoint Councillor Brown, the CAO, to meet with up to 4 other individuals to work out an MOU for the Boys and Girls Club in the village.
You heard the motion by Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Question? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thanks. 10-minute open session. Do we have anybody in the waiting room? I didn't think so. So then item number 11.1 is the Farmers Market Committee, a request for support. Susan Ballantyne to present.
Yeah, we have Susan Ballantyne, Jocelyn Brown, and Heather Brown in the waiting room. So I will admit them.
Sounds good. Good evening. I think Jocelyn's audio is just connecting, so we'll just give her a minute to get logged on, and then I think we're ready to go.
Okay, is Heather?
Heather is here. Yep.
Okay, great.
Did we get Jocelyn?
Yep.
Okay, I think you're all here and have audio, so over to you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Jocelyn and Heather and I are here on behalf of the Summer Market Vendors Committee. Sam Mackenzie Granger is also a member, but she wasn't able to join us tonight. So we have, we think, a really good summer market. Last year, on some of our busier weekends, we had more than 40 vendors, which maybe is as many as that there ever were at the North Head Market, if not more. So the market is a draw. It's a draw to islanders. It's a draw to tourists. It is great that it has such a visible location. So last year, people were drawn to the market, but they were drawn inside where most of the vendors were because a lot of us need shade. And how much nicer would it be to have people drawn to the market where the outside was the focus, which is why we're here tonight to ask for your approval and for a modest amount of funding to have a market pavilion built on the community center, at the community center. So the inside would still be used, but the outside would be the focus. It would be safer in terms of COVID if we still need to worry about that. It would be visible and much more pleasant. So I'm a relative newcomer to the market world. Jocelyn and Heather are both longtime vendors, and Heather agreed to say a few words about having an outdoor market rather than an indoor one. So over to you, Heather.
Okay, sure. Some of you know that I've been going to market for many years. I started in the Fredericton Boyce Farmers Market and did that through university and some high school. So that was many years ago, but still go back and visit Fredericton, go to the market. And since moving to Grand Manan, I started coming to the farmers market in North Head. And lo and behold, Dalton started to come to market too. And so we've both been vendors probably at least 10 to 15 years at the Grand Manan markets. And one of the things we've noticed, there's a whole different feel when you're the outside at the farmers market. There were times in North Head when we would go inside because of inclement weather, but it just lost its appeal, not just for the vendors, but for people attending market too. So we opted when the weather was bad, we just wouldn't come to market. Then when we had the opportunity to come to the community center, if the weather was bad, that worked out great. When we could be outside, like I said, the atmosphere is a totally different feel. So the idea of having a pavilion, an outdoor shelter that we didn't have to individually worry about getting it set up each week, tearing it down, the idea of moisture, and if it's foggy, that sort of thing, you might have protection, but the transportation, getting it back along with all your market goods, that's not at all appealing. So to have a permanent structure would be great. That if the weather's fit, when the weather's nice, it's even better because of shade. Products, if you have baked goods, the products can literally melt away. For me, I have a lot of packaging done up on my products, whether it's handmade or other items, and those items sweat in the sunshine. So again, having shade is ideal. So I'm really excited about this proposal for a market that could be outside in the summer, but still offer protection for the vendors and for customers too. And Susan's going to talk a little bit about some of the other things that such a structure could be used for when it isn't market time. So I think it could benefit not just the market people, but there's a lot of potential for other community events. Susan, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So I'm going to talk quickly about this site and this size. So the spot that we're looking at, I think you're all familiar with this. It's on the asphalt near where Rotary's canteen used to be during festival and near where Rob used to park. I love describing things in terms of like what used to be there, not what's there now, but Rob used to park there. The Rotary canteen used to be there. So the asphalt in that spot is about 50 feet wide. So we're looking at a pavilion that would be 40 feet wide and 60 feet long. We've been told that if the pavilion is placed there, it wouldn't interfere with the geothermal field. That will, of course, have to get confirmed by other people. So it would be like the pavilion at Anchorage, but without that back wall and without a sink. It would be open on all four sides. It would probably have electricity because I'm told that it's easy to do that. It could just be run, the power could be run from that little shed right there. And we've done the math, and it will hold about 35 6-foot tables. So that's a lot more than the 9 stalls that used to be at North Head. It won't be enough for every vendor that ever wants to go, but it doesn't have to be. Depending on how many tables each vendor wants, right in the pavilion, we could have between 17 and 30 vendors. We don't need to provide shaded space for all the vendors because some vendors will still want to be inside. People who like to set up the night before, for example, have to be inside. And other people just they like being inside. There are also people who want to be in the sun. So we think that being able to provide a shaded space for between 17 and 30 vendors would be fabulous. It would be really nice. We do have a good market, and our summer on Grand Manan is great. And it would just be wonderful to have this pavilion that would draw people around it. And as Heather said, we think that the pavilion can be used for many, many other things, especially given that the site is perfectly accessible. I mean, the Anchorage Pavilion is relatively accessible, but there are no accessible washrooms close by. This site is perfect in terms of its accessibility with accessible washrooms. We've come up with a fairly long list of other uses that the pavilion could be available for, and Jocelyn's going to talk about that. So Jocelyn, over to you.
Okay, just to add on to what Heather and Susan said, and most of you probably know it anyway if you've gone to the market, but it's a big social thing here on the island in the summertime. People love it. They socialize, there's music, usually have something set up like that, and they just come out and socialize, and they just love it. And our season is so short here that on a nice day, it's great to be outside and not to have to be inside. Some of the other things that we came up with that could be used for, we understand that the village is planning to have a summer festival, and it certainly could be made use of for that. This area would be perfect for that. We are planning to put movable tables in there, so that would work well. Birthday parties, it's handy, the skateboard park and the gym. So we think that would be a draw for many people. Lindsay Frost, who works with seniors, is excited about the idea for activities for seniors outside. There's lots of parking, and like Susan said, it is easily accessible. The concrete is good for wheelchairs and walkers, whereas a place like the Anchorage, you cannot maneuver on that gravel well with wheelchairs and walkers. That makes it difficult. So with the paving there, and it's flat and the washrooms are accessible, it's good for all, but especially the seniors. What else did we look at? As you mentioned about the electrical panel, we looked at the possibility of art classes, outside exercise classes with the movable tables. It would be in a shaded area. The Boys and Girls Club activities, again, it's close proximity to them. They have mentioned, when Susan had talked to Cindy, they mentioned something like preschool graduations where you've got room for families to attend. And again, we're thinking there's going to be COVID concerns probably for some time to come. So with the outside area, you can accommodate more people that way. Family picnics and barbecues, again, it's close to the skateboard park and the gym, which would be a draw. Kids clubs, it's central, it's not out of the way, and it's again easily accessible. In terms, it's central on the island. Pumpkin carving contest, that's can be a messy activity, so outside would be far better for that. Showers and baby showers and wedding showers, meetings of various types. Yeah, I think that's some of the things that we've just been brainstorming and come up with a few ideas of things that it could be used for. Most of us, or not most of us, all of us on the committee have been involved in fundraising on many activities. And we've come up with an idea for our first fundraiser. Do you want me to talk to that, Susan?
Sure.
Okay.
Since you're
One of the
doing
first,
most of the work.
what?
Since you'll be doing most of the work for it.
One of the fundraisers, one of the first ones we thought about was a dessert fundraiser once a week for 10 weeks. We could raffle that off where someone would get a dessert once a week for, well, we just said 10 weeks, draw a number. Again, like I said, we've all been involved in organizing and planning and carrying out many fundraising activities. So that isn't anything that's a deterrent to us. The island has lost so many things over the last few years, as we all know, that since the bank has come up, it's been the topic of conversation, and the farmers market is just one of them. We did carry it out last summer in the gym, and some had set their tables up outside. So it was good that way, and it was super to have it, but it would be wonderful to have the pavilion where you could have more people outside if the weather were so that you could. Just another thing for our community. It's sad when we lost it, but if we could get it back in another even better area, that would be great. That's what I got.
So my job is to talk about money. I met with Michael Park to talk about the cost of building a 40 by 60 foot pavilion, given that the asphalt is already there. So it would just be posts or pillars and a roof, 40 by 60. Michael said between 35 and 40,000. So we're working with 40,000 just because we'd rather be on the safe side we'd rather be happily surprised than unhappily surprised when the bill comes in. And this is just for the pavilion. The tables and more picnic tables are separate, but we have ideas for that fundraising if the pavilion gets approved. This idea isn't a brand new one. The committee's been talking about it for 6 or 7 months, I would say. And I brought the idea to Rotary's executive late last fall, just to see whether there would be any interest there. And the executive hasn't yet taken it to the membership, but the executive thinks that the pavilion is a good community project. And I expect that if the membership approves, which I think they are likely to, Rotary will be generous. I expect that they will donate an amount of money that they will want matched. Fair enough, because I think we can match it. So Rotary would likely carry the brunt of the money that had to be raised. The summer market does have some money in its bank account. I think it's between $5,000 and $6,000. We need some of that to buy various things and to pay bills, but again, subject to approval by the members, and the members certainly that we've heard from are keen on the idea of a pavilion. We could probably put $3,000 or $4,000 of that money in. We're going to appeal to the public for funding. It's difficult to predict how they will respond. I don't think the response would be anything like the response to the Seal Cove Playground or the Anchorage Trail, but we think that there will be members of the public who will respond well. So we're sort of thinking maybe $3,000 or $4,000 there. Rotary has a charitable body, Memorial Trust. There is almost certainly going to be a bequest to Memorial Trust, which is intended to go towards a community project. So that's about another $4,000 that could go towards this. And then we're going to fundraise, and we've all done this before, and we're getting pretty good at it. The dessert raffle is just the first idea that we've come up with, and I think that one's going to go well. We'll probably sell tickets on a Costco gift card, and those typically bring in between $2,000 and $3,000. So we think that our fundraising would probably do about $5,000, 1 or 2 raffles, and the sale of the Costco card. And so there's a lot of variables. I mean, I don't know for sure what the fundraising is going to do. I don't know for sure what the public's going to bring in. We don't know for sure what the bequest will be, but we think that if everything goes as planned, we will be able to raise between $30,000 and $35,000. So that leaves a fairly modest amount that we're asking for the village to contribute. It would be at least $5,000, but almost certainly not more than $10,000. And for that, we think that you're going to get we will all get this wonderful, wonderful pavilion that will make the market an even better place than it already is, and will be usable for lots of other activities. So unless you have any questions, those are my comments.
And mine.
Thanks, Susan, Jocelyn, and Heather. Any questions, comments from the group?
We'll take pre-sales on the dessert raffle.
I say I'm already hungry, so thank you for that. And we still have quite a bit of agenda.
Hey, Dan,
Yeah.
peanut butter pie, Dan.
Councilor Russell, I see your hand up.
Am I online? Because I can't see my mute button anywhere.
You're good to go.
Okay, just 2 or 3 questions. Would you, after this is built, would you propose that it would be turned over to the village after it's built?
Yeah.
There's a question of ownership with respect to being on village property.
Yes. Do you want me to answer the questions one at a time or wait for all of them?
No, one at a time is fine.
I think this would be village property. It would be, I mean, in my mind, it was kind of similar to what happened when we fundraised for the Seal Cove Playground. We were happy to carry the brunt of the fundraising, but this is on village property. It would be a village building.
Okay, so who would operate it and maintain it?
The village. There wouldn't
Okay.
be a lot to operate, Greg. I mean, it's.
Well, the committee too.
Yeah, I mean, we'd certainly take care of all the market part of it.
And what about storing tables, signs, etc.? You're talking up to 35 tables. Where would
Yes.
you propose to store those? Because I think there's limited space right now at the village, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, if there was no inside space for them, we could always just tarp them and keep them there for the winter.
Did we lose him?
Just a general comment for everyone, I think. Our space, first of all, I think it's a good idea. We've got a skateboard park there now. We've got, let's say in the future, we got a market pavilion. Hopefully in this general area around the village office, there will be a cultural pavilion. I think before we go much further with pavilions and additions, it might be time to get a professional to look at our landscape, our footprints, and see what will fit and maintain our parking. Parking's already been raised as an issue once we have the skateboard park. So anything we do there takes away parking, and I think before we commit to anything, I think we really should get a professional's view of the whole area here.
Thanks, Councilor Russell. I think we had talked about doing a plan for the use of the property there, so I think it's probably time we do that. I have Councilor Green and then Councilor Turner.
Yes, in principle, I think this is a great idea. And carrot cake, not peanut butter pie.
How about both?
You got it. But I really, several months ago, I made a motion to send this to the Properties Committee to get a master plan for that area as to what we actually have for land and to trying to resolve conflicts before they develop. And I think that, as Greg just said, while I had my hand up waiting to speak, I think it's important that we follow through on that to make sure, because we've also got the music stage, whatever's going up somewhere. I'm not sure. And I think everybody wants the same space. And I think we've got to make sure that we've got it coordinated properly.
I don't think that the music pavilion is looking at the same space that we are. Other people from Rotary, we met with Joanne and I think Roger, and went out and walked around, and I unless things have changed, I don't think we're looking at the same space.
Councillor Turner?
Yeah, my concern is with it not necessarily being on the same space, but a lot of the uses that are being proposed for this pavilion are actually proposed for the Arts and Culture Pavilion. And I don't think, I mean, that's certainly not a deal breaker, but I think that it would probably help to have some discussion around, you know, maybe incorporating everything into one or something, depending on, as Councillor Green said, you know, the space we have available and that kind of thing. I don't think we want to end up with our outdoor space looking cluttered, for lack of a better word. But I think there's definitely potential to sort of, you know, tag team there and have both arts and culture and the market working together, maybe not the same pavilion, but maybe have a layout that would work for both, you know, that would be both appealing to look at and, you know, may give us more bang for our buck on both sides.
Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons?
Yes, we did look at it and walked around, and it's not really in conflict of where we want to have the bandstand, but we talked about at one point in time having a look at the property because there's a ditch that runs along there, and one of the committees at Property Finance and Property was going to have a look and see the best way of filling in that ditch and what we wanted to do with that space there. So maybe if we can take some time and just see what we want to do there. But I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else? Councillor Brown?
I love the idea too, and I'm the chair for the Arts and Culture. But I really feel that we do need to make it, like Councillor Turner said, we need to make it cohesive. We need to make it flow and look nice. We can't have, you know, I really think that's important to how the whole area is going to look. We really do need to sit and think about it and maybe talk about, we can talk the arts and culture. I know we've talked with you, Susan, before, but we, you know, just sit down and do exactly what you plan on doing and what your structure is going to look like, and compared to what maybe our structure is going to look like. And so, but I do think the idea is great.
Anyone else? Councillor Russell?
I think it's time we got a professional in here to help us. I mean, it's with the Properties Committee now. I know I'm not qualified to lay anything out, coordinate designs. I think it's time for a professional. Kara may have some ideas of someone we could approach that could come in and look at the whole build right from the whole property here, and because I mean, you know, there could be something else come up. I don't know what else, but I think we got to do this professionally. And I know I only speak for me, but I don't know if Philman and Joanne are prepared to start doing design work either. So I'm going to make a motion that we get the CEO to source a professional to come and help us with some concepts with respect to this whole area.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Brown. Question. CEO Rayner, you had your hand up. Do you want to address the motion or wait till after?
After's fine. I was just going to bring up a couple points. But
Any Councillor Turner?
I think we could stand to have some discussion prior to bringing in a professional, because we may find out that, you know, this wouldn't work. I just think we need to have a little more dialogue before we pay a professional. I'm definitely on board with having one, but I think we need at least to get together, like maybe arts and culture and the market committee, and just kind of get a cohesive idea of what we want them to work with, what we want them to tell us about the property and that kind of thing. But I just don't feel like we're ready at this point to have a professional brought in.
Any more comments? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? That would be 3 opposed. So motion carried. I might suggest, though, to Councillor Turner's suggestion that maybe in the meantime, between now and next month, while we're contacting the land use planner, it may still be worthwhile for the 2 committees to sit down and do some of that legwork and maybe be ready for it once we have someone in place, because that, as we know, nothing happens overnight when we start these things. Chris, you had something.
yeah, just so everyone knows, when Silk Stevens done the design for the wellness center, they had also given us like a 20-year kind of a master plan overview of what the whole property could look like. Obviously that's changed, but I have had the conversation with Trace Plan and Design. They are the firm that we have hired currently to redo our outdoor pool. They are very open to working with us on stuff like this, and I think they would be very generous when it comes to their fees and services. So when it comes time, I can certainly reach out to them for that.
Sounds good. Before we leave this, do we want to, I'm just wondering about for the market committee, for their fundraising, that sort of thing. Do we want to support the concept and principle, recognizing we have to do all this work for a location, just so we've done that, or do we want to table that for a future meeting?
I think we should support it in the theory that hopefully we can get together and get the plan properly set up for both parties, and they can continue their fundraising in the meantime.
That sounded like a motion to me by Councillor Greenlaw. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Toll, and Councillor Boyd, you have your hand up for the question.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really a question. I was just going to agree with Councillor Greenlaw. I certainly think just from hearing almost everybody talk on this, I think it's a great idea. I certainly support it in theory. It's going to take a little bit of work to cross all the T's and dot the I's before we get too far. I really like the idea of making where the village office is and everything, the arena, kind of a central place in the island, because it is physically quite close to center, and I think it's good to have that heart. And with the pavilion, the music pavilion, and with a market pavilion, and I see a lot of cool things we can do here. And so I think Greg's right as well about getting a professional in to kind of sort out the land and see what we can do, because we want it to look good as well. But I'm all for it, and I'm all for having community all in one place. So I think it's a great idea.
A question on the motion.
Yes, Councillor Russell.
Is this respect to funding up to 10,000? I didn't hear a number in the motion.
I don't believe there was anything about funding. It was just supporting in principle,
Okay,
pending everything else.
thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the two committees, I think it's a great idea to have the two committees talking about how to move forward and what ideas can be shared.
There's never enough people to do everything, so I think the more we work together, the better it is for everybody. So I think this is going to be a really good initiative.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, how do I get out of here?
Lower right, there should be a leave button.
Oh. Leave, I see it. No, it's gone. I haven't used this before. There.
All right. Item 11.2 is Gannett Rock. See how Rainer, you have your hand up. I think Joanne and Philman were from before. Yep. Okay. Chris, and then I think Jordy is going to make a motion on that one.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that, would you like staff to reach out to the market people to get them in to formally fill out the application request for some funding?
That would probably be the next right step if they're looking for funding. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Layton, did you want to make a motion to table the Gannett Rock discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to table 11.2 Gannett Rock to the March's meeting when we have more information.
Heard the motion by Councillor Layton. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so I think that takes us to new business, which is 14.1 bank closure update. Councillor Turner.
Okay, I don't know if all the other councillors and the mayor have been in the same position as me, but I've certainly had a lot of questions about this, so we just kind of wanted to take a few minutes to bring people up to date. There's no sort of measurable progress on this to date, but we are certainly reaching out to all the possibilities, credit unions, other financial institutions, Canada Post, because they have a pilot project that incorporates a lot of banking in their Canada Post sites in a couple of different areas out west. So just sort of wanted to confirm to people that we are very actively pursuing this. We're looking at every alternative and basically trying to come up with what's available to us and what's a good fit for us. And it's not going to be a really short-term project. There's no quick fix for this. Even if we find somebody that's interested or an institution that's interested, it's going to take a lot of time to iron out any wrinkles. So this blurb is just sort of for the purpose of letting people know that we're on it. We're doing everything we possibly can and really looking, to do what's best for the island and bring whoever, can provide those services to us as soon as possible to put people's minds at rest and let businesses know that there will be options for them, that type of thing. So, and basically to let people know to feel free to contact me. I'm sure everybody feels the same way because we know the anxiety that's going with this issue. So, you know, feel free to ask. I'm just not sure we're going to have a lot of answers in the very near future, but we're certainly working at having one, you know, in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I would like to make a suggestion that the village, oh, go ahead, Councillor Layton. You're on mute.
I guess I don't understand the postal part of it. Can you explain that just a little more?
I didn't hear you broke
Canada
up.
Post? Do you mean Canada Post would supplies banking services?
Yes, they have a pilot project in High Prairie, Alberta, and one other location, and that's what they do. They have branched out in that way. It's specifically for this purpose for rural areas that either don't have banking or have lost their bank. So it's quite an interesting project, and it seems like there's definitely potential there. Obviously, our preference would be to have another bank or a credit union, but we just don't want to pursue, you know, one or two options, have those fall through in 2 or 3 months' time, and then try to look into other ones. So we're just sort of putting out feelers everywhere we can.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I would, oh, did I see a hand? My computer's glitching. I'd like to make a suggestion that we write to the Commissioner of the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Specifically, they look after bank closures, making sure that the proper protocol and all of those things are followed. They have some responsibility to consumers. I don't think it's anything that is going to stop the bank closure, but I do think it's good to go on record as a community that this is going to have an adverse effect on us, and that there are items in their recommendations or their bank closure meeting rules that I don't think Scotiabank necessarily fulfilled with their meeting over the phone the other last week before, whenever that was. So I would suggest that it would be in the village's best interest to at least go on record as saying we weren't pleased with how that process went down, if somebody wanted to make that a motion.
I would make that motion.
The motion by Councillor Greenlaw. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. And I would just say, if any individuals are concerned about it, they are online, their contact information. I would encourage other people to reach out as well. Anything else on the bank closure? Not that we couldn't talk about that all night, because really we could some days. Item 14.2, Graham and Independent. They are looking to install a PC bank machine, and they are hoping for a letter of support from the village. And I'm wondering if that's something we'd be interested in sending a letter of support for.
So moved.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. I've been checking things off and I'm afraid I'm going to start skipping things. 14.3, Regional Service Commission is having a special meeting this week, next week, to talk about RCMP and policing priorities for the region over the coming year. And so they've asked us to do a little bit of homework and check with our councils on what we would see as some of our policing priorities. So I don't know if we want to have the discussion tonight, recognizing we've been here for an hour and a half and still have quite a bit on the agenda, or if maybe if you all want to follow up to me by email. I think the meeting is the 12th, maybe, if that sounds right, or later. I think it's a week from tonight or tomorrow night. Anyway, follow up to me by email by the end of the week, and then we can go from there perhaps. Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, just on the policing priorities, I did send an email out just before the middle of last week. I'm on the Protective Services Committee with UMNB, and we had a committee meeting last week. Our executive director let us know that there has been several communities from around the province that have sent in letters of support to UMNB. Basically what we're trying to get as many municipalities that want to, I'm going to bring this up at the next Zone 4 meeting as well. As we all know, the federal government approved quite a hefty raise retroactively for the RCMP. And it's going to affect all us small communities a lot. The large communities too. It's a big chunk of money, and it's gonna. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, because they do. But it's going to be a financial burden, and the smaller the community, the worse it's going to be. So what UMNB is trying to do at this point is gather support in letter form to send to the provincial and the federal governments, asking that they help out in the increased cost of police services that will come from this retroactive raise, both federally and provincially. So I'd like to see our council, our mayor, send a letter of support in. So maybe we need to make a motion for that, or I'm up for discussion on that as well.
Are you making that a motion so we can have a seconder and have the discussion?
I am making that a motion. Yes, sorry, I wasn't really clear on that, but yeah, I'm making, yeah.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Question. Councillor Turner?
How is the retroactive pay to be split now? Like, is there a split with the province and the feds, and we're asking them to take a bigger chunk of hours, or is it on us? I guess I'm not understanding exactly how that works.
From what I understand currently, and if anybody knows different, correct me if I'm wrong. I missed the meeting with the J Division head that we had, but I believe it's going to fall on the municipality shoulders at this point. So the whole cost is going to fall on us.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, I believe you're correct about that. Any other questions, comments? CAO Rayner.
In that meeting with the J Division that day, did he not mention the fact that they were going to, hadn't they been increasing our policing costs over the last 5 years to compensate to not have such a big jump when it came into effect, because they knew it was coming? Did I hear that right?
Yes. I thought it was something like 3 years they'd been adding a retroactive for 3 years or something like that. So it's just not going to hit us right in the bang.
I think it was in the neighborhood of 5%, if I remember correctly. So there's still a pretty significant jump, I think, in the makeup potentially. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Right.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 14.4 is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. I sat down with Wade Reppert last week, and there's in your package, you can see a letter that he has written to us. He has suggested that we invite the Lieutenant Governor to the island to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. He knew her from a while ago, and I think she has expressed interest in coming potentially to the islands. So it's not a completely like cold invitation going out there, but she has some interest in coming, doing some things, and it seemed like it might be a feel good news story, which we haven't had a lot of lately. So there's a potential really long motion, which we could read, or we can do a shorter one and just ask for the invitation and maybe ask for the Arts and Culture Committee to work with Mr. Reppert in coming up with a program or whatever if this goes forward. So questions, comments?
I like the short version better.
So would you like to do that for us?
I will make a motion that the Arts and Culture Committee contact Mr. Reppert and arrange a visit of the Lieutenant Governor.
You heard the motion by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Toll. Question? The only suggestion I might make is maybe we should send the letter from the municipality and then have the Arts and Culture Committee work with Mr. Reppert after the fact, if it comes to pass. Would that make sense?
I amend my motion to that effect.
You okay with that, Councillor Toll? Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion
I had a
carried.
question, but
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Turner, question.
I
After the
didn't
fact.
want to do the whole. It wasn't really a question, it was a comment. I was just thinking as we talked about this, that it may be an opportunity to have like a Jubilee Pavilion. You know, that could be something that you could bring the Lieutenant Governor into officially open or something, but with our previous talks, it may be something that would be kind of cool to pursue in our talks with Mr. Reppert.
Very cool idea. We passed that motion, we voted on it. I'm getting a little punchy. It's been a long night, guys. All right, moving on to 14.5, CAO position, Councillor Green to update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The job posting for the CAO, permanent CAO position closed on the 4th. There were a goodly number of applicants, and our consultant is going to pare that list down to a few good people for the Personnel Committee to interview. Her process is going to probably take a couple weeks, and then the Personnel Committee will have a couple weeks to conclude the interviews, and hopefully things will go smoothly. And shortly after that, we'll move ahead a bit. But that's a pretty broad statement, a lot of detail there, wasn't there? Huh? But that's where we are. We're moving on it.
I did it. Thank you, Councillor Green. Any questions? Item 14.6, Mill Hill letter of request, acting CEO Chris Rayner to read.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe everyone has a copy of that letter in the council package. Do you want me to actually read this?
No.
Okay. So I had the opportunity today to bounce this off of the former CAO, and he said every couple of years this comes up, and he kind of gave me a breakdown of what happened. But at the end of the day, after looking through the properties today, that there's 2 PIDs there for that right away. It's a blue sign, which blue sign means private. All private lanes on the island has the blue signs. The green signs are provincial, and that's what the province will maintain. Although I did hear today that for some reason DTI in the past has put some some urea down for some dust control. Now, I'm not sure why they are, but that'd be a question for our local highway supervisor. But if you look at the two PIDs, the first PID, which is 15095045, that's the one that runs from, which used to be, which I think is Monty Brown's property now, up to the top of the hill. When you look at that on our Service New Brunswick website, it comes up with an owner of Graham and Ann. That's not the village of Graham and Ann. It just says Graham and Ann. Because if you look on all the village owned properties, it comes up Village of Graham and Ann. But the second PID on there, which is the short one that goes from the Whistler Road up to the other PID, and that's 15075518. If you look at the owner on that, it says unknown. But with talking with the former CAO, he said that that was a right of way that Al Logier had way back when, and owned that and turned that over to his daughter. I think we all remember that. I think they built the log house up on the top of the hill. So there's not a lot. I mean, I would suggest at this point, maybe I could reach out to some of the people on this list to get some more information from them on how to proceed. But as of right now, it looks like there's two unknown owned pieces of land on that right of way, which at the end of the lane is a blue sign, which means it's private. I live on a private lane with a blue sign, and nobody looks after that, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're looking for. But anyway, I can start looking into more detail for that if they'd like. But that's what I've got for information so far.
Thanks for the update. And Councillor Green, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, the urea was spread on the very lower portion of the road because the dust coming out on the intersection of the Whistle Road and Route 776 was causing an issue. So it didn't go the whole way up the road. I'm not sure, maybe, 50 feet, 100 feet, I'm not sure, but it only went part way because of that. And if you look in our subdivision bylaw, there are requirements for a road or a street to be taken over by the village as to what the village and the province, it's a joint thing. There are requirements that it be to a certain standard. And that's always been the sticking point, because the bottom part of the road is only, the right of way is 1 rod, which is what, 16.5 feet. And all right of ways now that are streets are 64 or 4 rods. So there's always been some issue there. And when there was some talk of expropriating land, we had a landowner, it's not there now, but threatened to take anyone right off the seat of the bulldozer with his rifle if anyone went up there and tried to take any of his land for a damn road up the hill. But so it's a sensitive topic, it certainly is, but there's some roadblocks that we did run into many times over the years, for sure.
Anyone else? I'm just wondering if it would be worth talking to the property owners who are there now, and if there is property that is not identified on Service New Brunswick, maybe if there's a way we can find out who actually owns it, it might be a first step for them to get the road to a somewhat reasonable condition. Maybe there's no willingness to do that. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, to do that, we would probably have to reach out to a solicitor to do a title search on those two pieces of property to find out exactly who the owner is on that, and if there's anything in those deeds referencing to the right of way up Mill Hill. But so that's, yeah, I can certainly do that.
I'm just thinking this continues to come up every couple of years, and if there's some way we can deal with it that will either resolve it one way or another, then maybe there's a different way to look at it, would be my suggestion. But it's up to the wishes of the group. Councillor Boyd.
From my understanding, as Councillor Green alluded to, I think it's a pretty costly process on the landowners to bring it up, because it has to be brought up to a provincial spec for the province to take it over. And I believe I've done a little bit of work when the email came out, and I spoke with Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons on some of the past issues, and I did a little bit of research and had a little bit of experience with it when I was in St. Andrews. But basically, it's a big bill on the landowners. And when we looked at it in St. Andrews, it was so much up front and then deferred to an increased tax rate for X number of years. So it is a lot of money. If it's something that they're willing to do, then I think it's something we could look at. But I think it's in the very early stages, and I think it would be, I guess, on the CAO to just maybe, like you said, contact a few of them and kind of see what they're looking for, and if they are aware of what the cost is to them.
Councillor Layton?
I believe there's a provincial program that specifically deals with instances like this, where the province will come in and upgrade the road, and they in return will be a tax that would be reflected in their taxes over a amount of time as more people build on that road. But one other thing that just come up, I think, is when the province approves a road like that, it has to have an exit now. So I think that's just another roadblock to get straight road brought up to provincial standards. So I don't know, it's an ongoing issue, and I think we should do everything that we can to, there's more than just this road too, but if we're going to dig into the whole road system, maybe we can incorporate this into a bigger plan going forward. That makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Layton. Anyone else? Councillor Boyd.
Whatever we do with it, it will set a precedent, because there are a lot of blue signed roads on the island. So if it's something we're going to look into and take some time to start a file on, then we need to be aware that this could come up again and again. So it is a private lane. And as Councillor Layton said, it has been an ongoing issue. And if there is something we can do to help resolve it, I think we certainly should, if it's within our power. I just don't know how much we're able to commit to resolving that, but I certainly think it's worth looking into.
So am I kind of hearing maybe have the CAO approach the landowners, see what they're thinking, if they're aware of the costs, get a little bit more information and see if there may be some next steps that would be not commit us to anything, but at least give us a little bit more information going forward? Is that kind of what I hear the group sort of saying? I'm seeing some nodding, so I'm going to take that as a good sign. Either that or my computer's glitching again and you're all just nodding. All right, so are we okay with where we are on that one? Okay, moving on to committee reports. Solid Waste Committee, Councillor Toll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors. The Solid Waste Committee has met a few times with the transfer station with Bill, and we've gone over some things regarding the transfer station. We've discussed being more transparent regarding monthly expenditures with Bill and the staff, and we'll now be getting monthly statements of those expenditures. There's a copy of a couple of other things as well in the report. And I have the breakdown that he gave me. It came a little late to get into this month's agenda, but if anyone wants a copy, just let me know and I can certainly email it to you. So you'll see the breakdown of what the costs have been for the past. This was all for December of last year. So we'll get January's within the next week or so, and then every month we'll get a breakdown of what they've been spending money. We also have gone over the monthly cost for transporting our solid waste to the landfill on the mainland. And the total for the last 6 months of 2021 was $72,747.24, which comes to yearly around $146,000, which, to be honest, kind of surprised me how much garbage we can produce in 1 year. This included the bills from Dutchman for transport, the cost of the ferry, and the tipping fees. I have an attachment that's attached with your agendas that have the breakdown of what each of those costs per month with the totals. And the average monthly cost is around $12,000 to take our garbage away. And this does not include the cost to run the transfer station or anything else. We do not have a whole lot of control over the cost of the transport for the ferry, but we do have control over how many trips a month we can make and how much is taken each time. So if we can lower our trips away, then our tipping fees would be less, and we could save. Bill has explained that we could probably save up to, I don't know, between 30 to 50% on our tipping fee costs. Of course, this takes work on the part of the village and the people that live here, which means we have to come up with a way to sort our garbage better and to start some new recycling programs so that we can lessen what is being just thrown in the landfill. It's surprising how much is still allowed in a landfill that shouldn't be allowed in a landfill. Examples of this are waste materials from, because I own a business and have a company that deals in used oil and filters and stuff, we sort all ours, and those don't go to the transfer station, they're picked up. But not everybody here does that. So we need to, and even just people with paint or whatever, that can be left and sorted at Bill's, and he will take it off our hands and it gets transported away by him. The paper, news and cardboard, all that kind of stuff can also be sorted. It only takes a moment to do, and we just need to get it out there to people and maybe let them know what's available and how this can be done easily. And I also have a list attached to your agenda that has a breakdown of the equipment that is owned by the village and the equipment that is owned by Bill. And the equipment that is owned by him, he maintains and looks after, and that's basically what he does most of the recycling with and the removal and cleaning up and whatnot. So on a side note of our home assessments, for every $100,000 that we have assessed of our homes, we're paying around $70 just for our garbage disposal, which equals 7 cents on our tax rate, I believe, or something around there. I'm not exact. Greg can certainly correct me on this. So for every trip that we don't make to the dump, to the landfill, we can save ourselves money on our tax rates. So I think it would be to a benefit to us to kind of work towards improving that over the next 9-10 months to see how we can improve things. That's basically all I have right now. I hope to be getting more information. I'm going to do some more research on what we're doing. I have some meetings with Sonia coming up about recycling and education and getting things done. So that's about all I have to say. If anyone has a question, I hope I can answer it. If I can't, I will certainly make a note to find out an answer. So I see a couple of hands. I don't know who was first. Bonnie, did you notice or?
I believe Councillor Layton's hand was up before.
Oh.
So I think it's Councillor Green.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Okay, 2 quick questions. Do you know what we're paying for per ton tip fee at West Solid?
I do not have, I know that per month we're making 4 to 5 trips, so you can take those numbers and divide them down, but I can certainly get the tipping fees of what they are broken down. Yeah.
The other question is, if you look at the months where we had 5 trips, we paid $740 for each trip, and the trips where we had months where we had 4 trips, we paid $862.50 per trip. Is there a rationale for that?
Sorry, what numbers are you looking at there?
Well, any month that there's 5 trips, the total for the month was $3,700, and if you divide $3,700 by 5, you come to $740. The next month it was $3,450. If you divide that by 4, you come to $862.
That I would have to get Dutchman to explain to me why that is. That's the bills that, yeah.
It's very consistent that way, and it just seems weird that it would be that much different on per trip.
Yeah, I can certainly get that information from Dutchman.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm new at this, I'm learning, so questions are good.
Counselor Turner? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Jane.
Sorry.
That's all right.
About the bait boxes, I thought it might be worth mentioning just what a big impact it would have if they could take the plastic liners out of the bait boxes.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
can't
you're
remember
right.
who brought that up, but it was a really big, it was a big factor.
It's huge. Yeah, it is huge. Bill was talking to me about that. That can save us $2,000 to $3,000 in what goes into those trailers that go away. The hard part is convincing people to do that. So, but it's something that can be worked on. I'll give you an example of, I hate to bring our shop up, but this is where I work and this is where I see things, and we do deal in this kind of product. This afternoon, we had an empty box of oil. We buy certain boxes in tubs, and some are coming cardboard boxes. And inside the box is a plastic bladder that has to come out when it's empty to be sorted so that the cardboard can be recycled. When we took the plastic bag, I took some pictures of it to just have them. When we took the plastic bag out of the inside, there was still a liter of oil in that bag. So if you don't separate those two things, which legally you don't have to because the landfill will accept them, that liter of oil from just that one box goes to the landfill and gets thrown in the landfill. So how many other boxes of that kind of thing are being thrown there? And this plastic is not even attached to the box. It's just a bladder. You pull it out, they empty it into another container and use it later. And that way that plastic bag's going empty to the landfill at least, if nothing else. And the cardboard gets sorted, so it gets put into the machine that binds them all up, and away it goes. It's simple things. We have done that here because that's my thing, is to recycle and to sort. So our shop probably has maybe 2 tote tubs a week of garbage. We sort our metal, we sort our cardboard, we sort our paper, we sort our plastic. We have extra oil picked up by a company that comes down. We do it all. So our garbage is, but I pay the same amount that the people that don't do this sort of thing do for my taxes, right? So I'm planning on getting on a soapbox here, but so Philman's laughing at me, but I feel that we really need to try as an island to try better to do things like this. Just all that money that we could save by doing that would maybe pay for a pavilion, or maybe it would go into the roads, or maybe it could go somewhere else for something that would be a much better way to spend the money. So I guess that's enough. Anybody else have anything to say? And I will try to answer those 2 questions, Philman.
Anyone else with questions? Thank you, Councillor Toll.
Thank you.
Okay, 15.2, Transportation Committee Report, Councillor Layton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and fellow councilors. I don't have a lot to share tonight, really. That's how much I got to share, I guess. I can speak with the airport. It's moving along as planned. There's no unexpected glitches in that. Correspondence is a big problem, I guess, that we have. So as far as the road and the ferry, we have some meetings coming up. We have lots of correspondence on the table, but I don't have anything to share, honestly, but I'd just like to say that I'm still here and we're all doing the job of moving things forward, but it's very slow. And that's all I have for tonight, unless somebody else said something bad.
Thank you, Councillor Layton. Before I open it up to questions, I am going to say sometimes there's not a lot to say for an update, but it doesn't mean there's not a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And I think if anybody knew how many calls Councillor Layton had made or had taken, particularly the past month with about the road conditions, I think you would be overwhelmed. So I do just want to say that. Are there any other questions for Councillor Turner or for Councillor Layton? Councillor Turner, you're not on mute, and I'm getting a little background noise. Thanks. Questions? Okay, hearing none, you're off the hook easy this month. Rec Director's report, Recreation Director Chris Rayner.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I as well don't have a whole lot to report. The month of January was a slow month recreation wise with the lockdown, but during that lockdown we did send the rec staff home for the 2 weeks, but I was pleased when they made the announcement to go back into a modified level 2. We were able to bring the staff back and get facilities back open again. So we are now able to have some type of a program in the arena. Hockey can continue for all ages. Minor hockey exemption with depending on the age of the kids with their vaccinations, but as far as adult groups, all the adult recreation leagues are able to continue, which was off the table before. The gymnasium's open, so we do have all of our fitness classes resuming, pickleball and things like that. Fitness center, we opened up the level to modify to allow for more bubbles, 2 bubbles, up to 4 people, just because of the space. So that was good. We had a lot of inquiries over those 2 weeks trying to get everyone in. Even with allowing the maximum of 4 people, we're still booked solid. I mean, the phone rings constantly, and I can hear the staff out there saying they're sorry, but it's booked all week. So hopefully we get into a level 1 or a modified 2.3 or 3.0 or whatever you want to call it, and get more in there. But we have been working on some plans for the summer. I've been working with JIL out of Fredericton to do an upgrade to the North Head Playground. I guess at this point they're the next in line for a little bit of an upgrade. I know Esme has put in for the Canada Summer Job positions. Again, it's just a guess on what we'll need for rec staff, for Parks and Rec, or VIC, lifeguard, stuff like that. So anyway, hope to hear back on that and get some positions. I was hoping to have an update on the pool from Trace. I was actually texting with them during the meeting, and they just didn't quite get it together. So, but they're hoping before the end of the week to have a bit of an update for us on that. He did say they had a bit of a challenge coming up with a structure that would be feasible inside the existing pool wall. So he did say that they feel like they've come up with a good solution, and hopefully they'll report back when they get that towards the end of the week or early next week. Any questions?
Any questions? You guys are getting quiet tonight. That's kind of good. All right, thanks, Chris. 16.1, bylaw number 5422. It's a bylaw to replace bylaw 11-96, a bylaw respecting Grand Manan Recreation and Parks Committee, first and second readings by Councillor Kira Greenlaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so I have to read this thing in its entirety, and I'll try to be quick about it. Bylaw number 54-22, a bylaw respecting Grand Manan Recreation and Parks Committee. 1, in this bylaw, village means the village of Grand Manan. Committee means the Recreation and Parks Committee for the village of Grand Manan. Chairperson means the appointed chairperson and the aforesaid Recreation and Parks Committee of the village of Grand Manan. Council means the municipal council of the village of Grand Manan. Director means the director of recreation for the village of Grand Manan. Organization 2. The organization known as the Recreation and Parks Committee is continued and confirmed as a recreation committee under the aforesaid name and shall be made up of no less than 5 members and not more than 9 members selected as hereinafter set out. The appointment of the members of the committee shall be made by the council, except as hereinafter provided. The council, in making such appointments, may consider recommendations from the committee. Membership on the committee shall be limited to residents of the village of Grand Manan, and in making appointments to the committee, the following rules shall apply. At least 2 of the members of the committee shall be councillors of the village. 1 member should be a high school student. An effort shall be made to see that there is representation from all user groups of the village of Grand Manan in making appointments to the committee. Term of office 3.1. After the coming into operation of the bylaw, not more than 3 members of the committee shall be appointed for a term of more than 1 year. Not more than 3 members shall be appointed for a term of 2 years. Not more than 3 members shall be appointed for a term of 3 years. Subsequent members shall be appointed for a term of 3 years. 3.2, any member may be appointed to serve an additional term or terms. 3.3, if a member of the committee resigns or for any other reason ceases to hold office, the council may appoint a member to the committee to complete the term of the person who has ceased to be a member. Meetings, 4. The committee shall hold at least 1 meeting every 2nd month and may hold such other meetings as may be necessary by the chairperson from time to time. Purpose and objectives of the committee, 5.1. The purpose of the committee shall be to coordinate and promote all recreation within the village, to plan for future development. 5.2. The committee will coordinate the various recreational groups in the village and act in an advisory capacity to such groups and provide liaison between them and the village council. 5.3, the committee shall be responsible for the allocation of funds budgeted for recreation by the council. It is the responsibility of the committee to prepare the recreation budget for submission to the council. The actual disbursement of the monies shall be controlled by the municipal treasurer. Functions of the committee, 6.1. The committee shall be responsible for the administration of all physical structures owned by the village and used for the purpose of recreation. 6.2, the committee may assist and encourage groups that are independently sponsoring recreational facilities. Should any such group require financial assistance, it must apply for such financial assistance to the committee and submit documented evidence of its financial position. If a grant is made, such a group shall be required to provide evidence of disbursement of the monies provided by such grant. 6.3, all groups requesting grants for recreational purposes within the village shall be reviewed by the committee for recommendation to council. 6.4, the committee may recognize outstanding recreational achievement in such a manner as the committee may deem desirable. 6.5, the village recreation director shall be answerable to, and his or her duties shall be laid down by the CAO. 7, bylaw 11-96, a bylaw of the village of Grand Manan respecting the Grand Manan Recreations and Parks Committee is hereby repealed.
So that was the first reading of the bylaw. And now I believe Councillor Greenlaw will read the title only, which will be the second reading.
That's right.
Correct?
That is correct. Bylaw number 5422, a bylaw respecting Grand Manan Recreation and Parks Committee.
And so now we do the third reading. I believe it's 30 days after the first reading, so won't make our March meeting, but our April meeting will have the third and final reading. And for anybody who is hanging with us and still watching, if you have comments on the bylaw, this is your chance to get them in. Any comments or questions from anybody who is still here on the Zoom meeting?
The longest night ever.
If we're going past 10 o'clock, we do have to make a motion. So let's just keep going and hopefully we get there. Okay. Councillor Greenlaw, bylaw 55-22. And if this one is a bit longer, if you need someone to take over, just sing out. We all have a copy of it. We can take pages or whatever.
I'll give it a shot. All right. Bylaw number 55-22, a bylaw establishing the code of conduct for the elected council of the village of Grand Manan. The short title of this bylaw may be cited as the Code of Conduct bylaw. Whereas the Local Governance Act requires or authorizes and requires local governments to establish and implement a Code of Conduct bylaw. Whereas the citizens and the taxpayers of the village have a right to be served by a council committed to performing their functions of office with integrity, respect, accountability, leadership, collaboration, public interest, and transparency to the best of their knowledge and ability. Now therefore, the Council of the Village of Grand Manan being duly assembled, enact the following. Definitions. In this bylaw, village means the Village of Grand Manan. CAO means the Chief Administrative Officer of the Village of Grand Manan. Council means the elected mayor and the council of the local municipal government. Employees means all employees of the local government, full-time, part-time, contract, or seasonal. Members means members of the local municipal government. Social media means freely accessible, third-party hosted, interactive internet technologies used to produce, post, and interact through text, images, video, or audio to inform, share, promote, collaborate, or network. Village property means the village's financial and non-financial assets, including but not limited to land, vehicles, equipment, electronic devices, and documents. Confidential or confidential information means any aspect of the in-camera closed deliberations, information identified as confidential within the provisions of the Right to Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and information subject to solicitor-client privilege. Officer means an employee of the town that reports directly to the CAO and may carry some delegated or designated duties of the CAO. Purpose. The purpose of this bylaw is to establish standards for the ethical conduct of members relating to their roles and duties as representatives of the local government and a procedure for enforcement of those standards. 1. Code of conduct. Members shall follow a code of conduct by A, representing the village and working for the common good of the village citizens and taxpayers while promoting the public interest and advancing the mandate and long-term interests of the village. B, conducting council business in an open and transparent manner that promotes public confidence and trust, recognizing that an individual councillor cannot exercise individual authority over the village. C, exercising their duties with care, diligence, and skills that a reasonably prudent person would exercise in comparable circumstances. D, exercising their duties by placing the interests of the village ahead of their personal interest to a reasonable extent. And E, exercising their duties in an impartial manner, making decisions based on objective criteria rather than on the basis of bias or prejudice. 2, communicating on behalf of the village. A, the mayor in his or her absence, the deputy mayor is the official spokesperson for the village. B, all councillors acknowledge that official information related to the decisions of council will be communicated to the community and the media on the behalf of the council as a whole. C, where practical and possible, the Village of Grand Manan's social media accounts, such as Facebook, Twitter, etc., are to be administered by village staff and not members of the council. 3, respecting the decision-making process, all councillors shall A, foster respect for the democratic decision-making process, and B, work towards effective and consistent implementation of the positions and or decisions of council. 4, adherence to policies, procedures, and bylaws. A, as the village stewards and decision makers, all councillors shall respect and adhere to the established policies, procedures, and bylaws of the village, showing commitment to performing their duties and functions with care and diligence. 5, respectful interaction with councillors, staff, the public, and other members of society. A, treat fellow councillors, administrative staff, and the public with respect, concern, and courtesy, and not engage in discrimination, bullying, making threats, using abusive activity, or offensive language towards others in their elected roles. B, demonstrate the highest standards of personal integrity and honesty. C, communicate and work with fellow councillors and staff in an open and honest manner, promoting a spirit of cooperation by listening to and respecting those opinions that may differ. D, use communication skills or communication tools and social media in a professional and appropriate manner, only to promote the approved objects of council and not attempt to reflect on council decisions or disparage or criticize other councillors or village staff. Derogatory, defamatory, discriminatory, indecent, obscene, or false comments shall not be posted. E, councillors shall make every reasonable effort to give 4 hours prior notice if unable to attend the regular monthly council meeting. 6, confidential information. A, all councillors shall hold in strict confidence all information concerning matters deemed confidential and shall not either directly or indirectly release or make public in any way divulge any information which is deemed to be confidential unless authorized by council or required by law to do so. 7, conflict of interest. A, no councillor shall engage in any activity which is incompatible or inconsistent with the ethical conduct of their elected official duties in the public interest. These activities include, but are not limited to: 1, use of any influence of the office for any purpose other than official duties. 2, use of any information gained in the execution of the office that is not available to the general public for any purpose other than official duties. 3, place themselves in a position of obligation to any person or organization which might reasonably benefit from special consideration or may seek preferential treatment. And 4, influence any council decision or decision-making process involving or affecting any person or organization in which a councillor or councillors have financial interest. 8, respecting roles and responsibilities. A, members of council shall accurately communicate the decisions of council even if they disagree with council's decision, such that respect for the decision-making process of the council is fostered. B, decision-making authority lies with council and not an individual member. No member shall, unless authorized by council, attempt to bind the Village of Grand Manan or give direction to employees, agents, contractors, consultants, or other service providers or prospective vendors to the village. C, convey all concerns or requests for action or information directly to the CAO or where appropriate and as agreed upon by the CAO, communicate with an officer without committing the village to any specific course of action, expenditure, or use of municipal resources outside of the village's established policies, procedures, budget, or otherwise. D, avoid any situation in which a friendship, social relationship, or social interaction with a member of staff may to be seen to create undue influence, access to information, conflict of interest, or to undermine the authority of the council or CAO. And E, not advocate for the promotion, sanction, or termination of any municipal employee. Sorry, I need a drink of water. F, not express any opinion on the performance of any municipal employee, with the exception of the formal CAO performance evaluation, unless filing a formal complaint as required by the village. 9, use of municipal government property, resources, and services. A, no councillor shall use or attempt to use the village's property, funds, services, or information for personal benefit or for the benefit of any other individual. B, no councillor shall use village assets, including village cell phones or email accounts, for provincial or federal political activity. C, no councillor shall sell or trade village assets. 10, complaints. A, any person in good faith may report perceived wrongdoing or make a complaint alleging a breach of the council code of conduct by a councillor. All reasonable attempts shall be made to keep the reports and the complaints confidential until a full investigation is completed in order to protect a councillor and a complainant. B, the report or complainant shall be in writing, outlining the nature and specifics, to be dated, include the name of the complainant, signed, addressed to the mayor, or in the case of perceived wrongdoing of the mayor, to the deputy mayor, and marked confidential. The complaint will be mailed, emailed, or hand delivered to the village office and the councillor in question. 1, upon receiving the complaint, if the issue cannot be resolved in a mutually satisfactory manner upon consultation with the mayor or deputy mayor, the councillor in question, and the complainant, then the complaint or report shall proceed to step 2 of the process, which is 2, review by the personnel committee to suggest a remediation of mutual satisfaction, or in the case that no agreement or resolution is available, presentation and recommendation to full council. All received complaints shall be included in the camera closed session of regular council meeting for council's perusal upon receiving it. C, an anonymous report or complaint shall not be considered valid. D, councillors, mayor, and deputy mayor who may be reported shall not undertake any act of reprisal or threat against a complainant, employees, or any other person for providing relevant information in relation to a possible violation of this bylaw. E, depending on the nature of the complaint, council may 1, authorize the mayor and deputy mayor, or in the case of perceived wrongdoing of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and 1 councillor to investigate the complaint and report to council. 2, dismiss the report or complaint as invalid, request legal opinion regarding the report or complaint. 3, request the village legal counsel to investigate the complaint and report to council through the mayor, or in case of perceived wrongdoing by mayor, through the deputy mayor. F, if the complaint is determined to be valid by the majority of council or through independent legal advice, council may impose sanctions defining the specific action to be taken by a motion. 11, sanctions available to council but not limited to: A, a letter of reprimand; B, a letter of apology; C, attendance at training; D, suspension or removal of mayor or deputy mayor as official spokesperson for the council; E, suspension or removal from some or all council committees and bodies to which council has the right to appoint members; F, restricting the privileges of attending conferences and workshops at the village's expense; G, reduction or suspension of remuneration as council may deem appropriate. 12, review. The council code of conduct bylaw must at a minimum be reviewed every 5 years.
Thank you, Councillor Greenlaw. Take another drink of water. That was the first reading of bylaw number 55-22, the Code of Conduct bylaw. This is a bylaw that we are required by law under the Local Governance Act to have in place. So that's why this one happens to be coming up now. So with that, I will ask Councillor Greenlaw if she wants to do the second reading in title only, unless she wants to read the whole thing again, in which case.
I would love to, but I think we've had enough reading. Okay, bylaw number 55-22, a bylaw establishing the code of conduct for the elected council of the village of Grand Manan.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
17.1. I should say before we move on, there's a lot of work that went into getting both of those bylaws organized and ready. And it's not just the reading of them. Thank you for getting us all organized on those. 17.1, general operating fund, Dillon Consulting Rural Plan, $14,950.
So move.
With the motion by Councillor Russell, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 18.1, motion to transfer $13,557.10 from the operating reserve fund to the general operating fund. And that was what was left in last year's budget for the rural plan. So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Russell. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Toll. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We did close session before the meeting, which is why we're all a little giddy, I think, by now. I'm just going to go through the items quickly. We've covered some of them already. 19.1 was personnel CAO, and we had an update on that already. 19.2 was financial, the bank closure, which we've talked about. 19.3, legal, village solicitor.
I move we direct the CEO to, oh, sorry, am I talking before I was recognized?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I move we direct the CEO to get us the information we need to move forward on this issue.
You heard the motion by Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question. All those in favor?
All right.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. The next one was financial logo design tender, which we have dealt with. And the final one was personnel, mayor and council benefits, which I believe we've also dealt with, haven't we, Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Okay, and by talking very quickly, we made it under our 10 o'clock deadline. Our next regular council meeting will be March 7th, 2022, hopefully in person, but if we're out of level 2, if not, maybe back here on Zoom. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there, and can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd make that motion.
Heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.